Good morning. I've looked and I haven't seen a whole lot going on with Leon Valley. I have, however, seen a lot of auditors wishing the people who are going very good luck and saying that they're not going. So I think that's a good sign. Well, I hope that's a good sign anyway. I watched Ed. Ed made a wonderful video, excellent video on the propaganda techniques employed by Mr. Freeman. I fully endorse that video, except for the very end where he asks people to withdraw their support. Maybe I'm phrasing it wrong, but he asks people to stop watching, I guess. Again, I could be misphrasing it, so Ed, feel free to correct me, but basically he's asking people to back away from Mr. Freeman, outcast him. That's not my particular thing. I don't support that. I've never supported that for anybody. I think Charlie Manson should have a right to speak. I just think everybody else should be able to have a right to say how what Manson's saying is retarded. Same thing with Freeman. Freeman has so many holes in his logic that it's not really an issue to try to tear what he says down. I mean, he's an anarchist who reveres the Constitution. I mean, what more needs to really be said at that point? He's an authoritarian, from what I can understand. He appears to be more of an authoritarian. He wants his freedom. He wants your freedom, as long as your freedom agrees with his freedom. And then if you don't agree, then, well, he thinks you should be forced to adopt his views. To me, that suggests statist, or not statist necessarily, but authoritarian, dictatorial, as it were. Obviously, your mileage may differ, and you're free to disagree with me. And Mr. Freeman could state his own position, but I tend to judge more by actions than by words, so Mr. Freeman's actions suggest that he is very authoritarian. To me, from my subjective viewpoint. That is not an objective statement, that is my subjective viewpoint. Feel free to do with that as you will. I've had a request to video the hula dancers at the luau. I have done that in the past. I will probably do that again. I'm not going to video the entire luau because obviously that would be creepy and weird. But in the past, people do video the hula dancers. They're a local group that they perform Hawaiian, Tahiti, or Tahitian. I'm not sure how to say that. Hula dances from Hawaii, Tahiti, and some other places in Polynesia. So they kind of show a variety of different styles of South Pacific dance, South Pacific Islander dance. And they're cute gals. They're nervous as hell getting up there. But they do their little performance, and sometimes they screw up and they get all blushy up there, and it's just fun. And then the fun part is that at the end, they invite everybody up there who wants to learn to do one of the more relatively simple dances. They invite everybody up there to learn it. And all the kids go up there typically, and they'll usually get a few adults up there too. And they'll all look like fools. Not in the bad way, but in the having fun way. They'll all, it's just fun and dopey and, your typical middle-class bourgeois kind of get-together. And no, it's not white. It's pretty mixed. The hosts are Asian and white, and there's a lot of Asian families that go in there, and a lot of white families, and there's a few black friends that come. Yeah, very mixed. To the best of my knowledge, though, there are no actual South Pacific Islanders. So it is definitely cultural appropriation, and you can file your complaint appropriately. Laws are gray areas. Indeed, laws are gray areas. It's the obvious cases are obvious. It's the fringes that are questionable, and the fringes that are questionable are things like, can you prove intent? Did it rise to the level of harm, etc., etc. I don't think that Leon Valley is really some hotbed of police malfeasance. Where I've seen police malfeasance, like where it's been reported in the news, where it's not just like a cop that's doing something terrible, but where it's like department-wide, that seems to involve money, scamming, like doing the seizures, the forfeitures, civil asset forfeitures, and retaining the money or misusing the money, things like that. That's typically where I've seen department-wide malfeasance. Usually it shocks people's conscience enough that if somebody's actually just going out murdering or whatever, then even the police, who you think are horrible, will be like, you know, bro, that's not cool that you're just going around murdering people. Maybe you should stop. I love it when people send me articles, by the way, of like judges who have been forced to retire because of inappropriate behavior in the courtroom. And I'm like, yeah, well, they were forced to retire. Oh, well, no, they just retired. They just quit. Well, no, they were forced to retire. Well, it says that they just quit. Well, yeah, so they quit when they had 2 years remaining on their term. Yeah, right. Or they send me like where police misbehaved, and like, yeah, well, they were actually charged and convicted. I'm like, but the police are bad. No, that means the system's working, actually. That's proving the wrong point for you. I'm not saying the system is perfect, by the way. I just want to clarify that. There are bad police out there. And there are police who are having bad days and doing otherwise good police who do a bad thing because they had an argument with their wife or whatever. And, you know, we need to be aware of that, etc. Nomen and swine. Was the arrest valid? I don't know. I mean, at this point, we've only had testimony from nomen, and we've only had the video. Again, we don't know if there were calls out saying that these guys had been engaged in some sort of nefarious activities. We don't know if the police had probable cause. We just don't know a lot of things. I am not like your typical auditor fan who's just going to believe verbatim the words of the auditors. I don't operate that way. We're missing testimony from the officers, and we're missing any background as to like why that officer was there. Was it just he was driving down the street and saw a guy in a mask? The camera angle from swine repellent's camera wasn't terribly clear on what was going on with nomen. So again, if everything that nomen says is accurate, and if there is no other evidence that is pertinent, and if the police officer's testimony matches in whole or in part nomen's, then absolutely nomen was unlawfully arrested. There you go. The officer lacked probable cause for whatever he arrested nomen for. But there's a lot of ifs there. And again, I'm not trying to defend the cops. I'm not saying that I'm not saying anything at this point. What I did advise nomen through OG2 is I advised nomen that if he's not charged, then he should definitely seek an attorney, because there's a statistically high probability that he has a viable lawsuit. It might not be the world's winningest lawsuit, but it would be a viable one at that point. If he is charged, then maybe. It's still worth talking to an attorney about. Get an attorney who does criminal defense and civil suits and let that attorney roll through both with you. That would be my best bit of advice for nomen. Again, I just don't know. I don't have all the facts, and it's really hard to say without all the facts whether or not somebody's guilty of a crime. We can look at the facts. It's easier to look at the facts to see if someone was like trespassing, because there's not a whole lot you have to prove to see if they're guilty. Like with Padilla's video, we had to prove very few things. We had to prove that he was in a place where he didn't have privilege or license to be. We had to prove that he had been given notice to leave, and we had to prove that he didn't leave after he was given that notice. And you can see all that in the video. So the video is very damning for Padilla. But the video for nomen, number one, it's almost impossible to see anything going on with nomen. And number two, we don't know why the police were there, what the police were seeing, what his interactions with the police were, etc. So it sounds like from what nomen was saying, that they don't have a charge listed for him, so they might be dropping it, which would be awesome. But that doesn't change anything I said about auditing in a mask. It's ridiculous. If you want to get detained, going out in a mask is a good way to do it. If you don't want to get detained, it's not a good idea to go out in a mask, because masks are a fact, that it's an objective fact that the police can point at in support of their reasonable suspicion that you are committing X crime. Remember Officer McFadden in Terry v. Ohio? He saw people walking up to windows, looking in, walking back to the street corner, and talking to each other. Those were articulable facts. None of them were crimes, but they were articulable facts that these guys were committing armed robbery. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.